The first thing Lena Alvarez remembered afterward was the smell: scorched varnish, rosin, and beneath that, singed silk. One instant she had been counting 16 silent measures before her thunderous entrance. The next, a shockwave rolled across the stage of Avery Hall, as if the hall itself had reached its breaking point. She had seen the flash from inside the percussion cage, where the bass drum stood like an untouchable planet. Brass players were blown off their risers, music stands sailed through air, and the final vibration that reached her timpani heads sounded grotesquely like laughter. When the smoke parted, Principal Trumpet Andrew Bell lay twisted under a toppled set of chimes. The maestro's white tails were peppered with dark flecks that were not ash. Someone screamed high and thin, and Lena was surprised to learn that the sound came from her own mouth. The newspapers called it the worst tragedy ever to strike the Empire Philharmonic. They printed photographs of dented cymbals and the melted copper bell of Bell's sea trumpet because irony pleased editors. The official statement, supplied after a 10-hour inspection by the fire marshal's office, labeled the event a freak accident, a faulty flashpot used to enhance the final chord of Mahler's Sixth. Lena knew better. 2 hours before the downbeat, she had padded into the percussion storage to double-check her copper timpani. On her stand lay a newly printed part. At first she thought she had simply misplaced her own, but on closer look odd penciled squiggles looped above the last 5 measures. They were not markings any percussionist would recognize. Tiny inverted half notes drawn like dangling hooks, each accompanied by a bold X. Lena, in a rush, had chalked them up to the librarian's eccentric shorthand, stuck her original part in the folder to trade back later, and walked away. Now that temporary part was enshrined in a police evidence bag. The librarian, Jules Park, swore he had never loaned a substitute sheet to anyone, and the inspection team reported no flashpot anywhere near the percussion battery, which meant somebody had brought the explosion with them, smuggled it onto the stage, and used the foreign sheet music to ensure it detonated at the exact second Lena struck her drum. The idea that her mallet, her music, had delivered the fatal cue hollowed her like a rot. Police interviews went on for weeks, but classical musicians are adept at silence when needed. The union lawyer coached everyone into short, sorrowful sentences. The detectives circled the same wagons, angry ex-players, stagehands with a record, a pyrotechnics supplier who'd recently gone bankrupt. Yet none of them could have replaced a single page inside the Philharmonic's triple-locked music library without being seen. The killer, Lena decided, had to be someone inside the orchestra's own bloodstream, and if the detectives could not trace the sheet swap, she would. She learned quickly that grief granted invisibility. Colleagues assumed she was numbed, which was correct, but they mistook numbness for passivity. She spent rehearsal breaks in the library stacks, rummaged through abandoned lockers, and let her memory replay the afternoon of the concert in obsessive detail. There had been only one outsider roaming backstage that day, Oliver Trent, the assistant conductor. Technically, Trent belonged to the organization, but he never attended stage rehearsals for the Mahler. He claimed his presence on concert day was professional devotion. The maestro might collapse, and a backup baton must finish the program. Nobody questioned that logic. But Lena had seen him at 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes before house lights, holding a sheaf of parts as though returning them to the librarian. She recalled, with ice in her lungs, the smear of red pencil dust on his cuff. Trent was ambitious in a manicured way. Blonde sheen, triathlon physique, and a symphony of networking smiles. Rumor said he'd composed an oratorio that no reputable ensemble wished to program, which pained him more than public rejection. He hungered for validation, not wages. Still, rumor was not proof. Lena needed something tangible, and she found her detour one damp Thursday night as the orchestra prepared a memorial concert for the fallen trumpet. She lingered in the library after hours. Jules, locking cabinets, told her through puffy eyes, "Go home, Lena. None of us needs more ghosts." When he turned the key, she noticed a scuff mark on the floor in front of the lowest drawer, fresh, grey, shaped like the rubber tip of a baton. Jules's baton was birch. It would leave a cream scrape, not grey. After he left, she unfolded a collapsible drum key from her pocket. Percussionists are never without tools. The key's flat head slid easily into the lock, and 2 minutes later she eased the drawer open. Inside sat only the horn part for tonight's Brahms, but beneath it, crumpled like contraband, was a set of copied timpani pages, her own. She recognized her neat crescendos penciled in from last season. The top margin carried smears of solvent, the degreaser used to erase toner from photocopies. Whoever had swapped these sheets months ago had then hidden them in plain sight, counting on no one to go spelunking through old repertoire. She stuffed the pages into her coat and relocked the cabinet. At home, she spread them across her kitchen table. Under ultraviolet light, the kind she used to verify calfskin drumheads, secret letters bloomed. Phrases from a poem she half recognized, each line cut mid-word, impossible to pass. But certain letters were bolded. Lena copied them onto a notepad, feeling stupid until she reached the end and saw they spelled Ein Held. Ein Heldenleben. Strauss's tone poem about a hero, the piece Oliver Trent had been lobbying the Philharmonic to let him conduct next season in a gala featuring himself. Too neat to be chance. Lena photographed everything and thought, "Fine, let's play your heroic game." The memorial concert arrived foggy and tense. The Philharmonic dedicated it to Andrew Bell. Trent was scheduled to conduct a single work, Adagio for brass and percussion, a new composition he claimed would honor solidarity and healing. The board loved that narrative, but Lena had swapped something herself now. With Jules's trembling consent, she and the librarian had laced every set of the Adagio with a transparent marker only visible under black light. If someone tried to replace a page, that glow would vanish. At 5 o'clock, she walked the labyrinthine corridors under Avery Hall, tracing routes between practice rooms and freight elevators. Twice she passed stagehands rolling timpani skins, too engrossed to look at her. The hush of morning had grown fussy, brittle. People avoided meeting eyes. Near the loading dock, Lena heard a locker door slam. She slipped behind a stack of music stands and saw Trent push a dolly bearing an oblong flight case. He checked his phone, glanced both directions, and wheeled the case toward the freight elevator. The case bore a customs tag, Explosives and Pyro FX, London, Heathrow. Her heart hammered in polyrhythms. Maybe it was leftover equipment from the ill-fated Mahler show, still awaiting disposal. Or maybe Trent had kept a souvenir. She followed, staying 2 turns back. The elevator disgorged them onto the stage level. Trent steered the dolly behind the acoustic shell. When he reappeared, the case was gone. Lena crept to the shell wall. Through a crack, she glimpsed him unwrap tape securing the flight case. He opened its lid, withdrew a slender oboe folder. Why would explosives travel inside an oboe folder? And hurried to the brass section stands. He replaced 2 parts quickly, smoothly, like a dealer swapping playing cards, and slipped away. She lunged forward and snatched one of the original sheets still warm with his fingerprints. The ultraviolet marker on its margin glowed confidently. She pointed her pocket UV flashlight at the page Trent had planted in its place. Nothing. Her violinist colleague, Hannah, poked her head around the shell. "Lena, house doors open in 10. "Emergency," Lena whispered. "Find security. Tell them Trent's tampering with music parts." Hannah's mouth fell open. "Trent? He's conducting tonight." "Exactly. Go." While Hannah sprinted off, Lena forced herself to examine the planted brass part. Measures 37 through 40 stored odd symbols, identical to the inverted half notes she had seen on her fatal Mahler sheet. And in measure 40, a penciled star. That star aligned with a fortissimo chord, exactly when Trent would slash his baton downward. The same kill signature. Voices erupted by stage right, Hannah arguing with a guard, asserting that a timpani player knew what she was talking about, the guard citing chain of command. Lena had seconds before Trent returned. Instinct barked a single command: neutralize. She raced backstage to her percussion cage. Among spare beaters lay a small square of thick felt used for dampening. She grabbed it, then hurried to the brass risers, where a concealed explosive must now be wired. In the gap under First Horn's chair, she spied a fist-sized clay lump with a receiver antenna taped to the frame. Its fuse ran to a contact strip wedged under the floorboard, pressure activated, not remote. The contact point sat directly beneath a large pedal-operated crash cymbal stand. When the stand rocked into that spot during measure 40, the lump would detonate. The floor would channel the blast upward, precisely where the horn's bells faced, magnifying shrapnel into the audience. Timpani were clear of direct path. Trent didn't intend to kill Lena. Not this time. She pressed the felt between contact strip and floor, an improvised insulator. The circuit separated by barely a millimeter, sometimes enough, sometimes not. Facial muscles quivered with the memory of Mahler's sixth and its smoke. "That won't help, Miss Alvarez," said a calm voice. Trent stood 6 feet away, baton resting on his shoulder like a general's swagger stick. He wore his black tailcoat, immaculate, but perspiration shone along his hairline. "They'll discover the bomb when I show them these markings," Lena said, brandishing the swapped brass part. "Bomb?" he tisked. "Such melodrama. Think of it as a corrective resonance chamber, an explosive timbre. Mahler understood apocalypse, you know. You killed Andrew because Maestro Ravel refused to hand you a podium. I didn't mean for Bell to die." Trent's nostrils flared. The blast should have taken Ravel, but the fool stepped aside to cue the trumpets in that exact second, so history adjusted. And tonight, a memorial concert. "A hero's death completes the narrative," he murmured. "After tragedy, the public needs catharsis. They'll hail my bravery, that I saved them from a stage catastrophe that materialized under another man's score. You'll be right here on the podium when it blows. That's the genius. I altered the circuit. When I cue the cutoff, everyone will stare at me. The horns will lift, your dampener will fail, and boom, I fall a tragic martyr. The ensemble rises from ashes, and my adagio is forever bound to their rebirth." Lena pictured the hall crammed with families clutching programs, the hush before downbeat. She imagined the shockwave, brass players shredded, Trent collapsed into divine glory. "No," she said, "not again." He extended a hand. "Give me the part, step away. I promise your section will be spared. You are," his eyes flicked over her, "useful." Behind him, Lena saw security staff bursting through a door, Hannah between them pointing and shouting. Trent whirled. Lena flung the brass part like a frisbee into his line of sight. As he instinctively ducked, she lunged, using the heavy cymbal stand as a lever. The felt slipped, the contact strip kissed metal. She pulled the stand sideways, ripping the cable free just as the circuit sparked. A gout of white smoke coughed from the clay. No flash, no thunder, just an angry sizzle, then silence. She had broken the fuse before full ignition. Trent hurled himself at her, baton raised. She met him with the cymbal stand, catching his wrist. Years of pounding timpani had sculpted her shoulders. The baton clattered away. Guards tackled him, pinning his torso. Someone shouted, "Device secure," and a technician with wire cutters snipped leads from the gutted explosive. Only when Trent was cuffed did Lena realize she was shaking. The stage manager patted her back. "Show's cancelled. House evacs in progress. You're safe." But safe felt premature. 2 days later, she sat in a police interview room across from Detective Sims, who now treated her like a consultant rather than a suspect. Trent had confessed, albeit poetically. He claimed he regarded composition and destruction as parallel art forms, both demanding absolute timing. Sims closed his notebook. We found emails. He ordered detonators from a UK effects company that services rock tours. He hid them on the same flight case you saw. He rehearsed everything in a derelict factory across the river. No paper trail except the sheet music swaps. Lena set a photocopy of the UV-lit markings on the table. He choreographed the blasts as if they were the symphony's climax. That's why he replaced parts. Players reading fakes wouldn't notice missing measures. Sims sighed. "The union owes you. Hell, the city does." She answered without bravado. "I just listened for the wrong notes." Word spread with wildfire speed, how the timpanist's ear had outplayed a killer conductor. Critics wrote columns about the percussive detective. Sponsors financed counseling for traumatized musicians. Lawsuits glinted on the horizon. The board resigned in shame. Maestro Ravel, alive and newly humbled, phoned Lena to offer condolences and, haltingly, thanks. Weeks crawled past. Instruments were repaired, seats reupholstered. Avery Hall reopened with tightened security and a promise of transparency. And the orchestra scheduled one more concert, this time raising funds for Bell's widow and hospital bills of the injured. They asked Lena to choose the repertoire. She picked Strauss's Ein Heldenleben, Trent's coveted Grail, and programmed it under a guest maestro renowned for patience and kindness. Some called that cruel, but Lena believed in repurposing ghosts. On opening night, the hall thrummed with tentative optimism. Lena took her place at the timpani, mallets resting on the copper bowls. She scanned the audience, no empty seats, no flashbacks to smoke, only people who trusted the fragile contract between stage and heart. At bar 153, the first heroic theme blazed in the horns, unbroken, unafraid. Lena read her part, 4 fortissimo strikes, measured, exultant. She raised her mallets. This time, the chord exploded only in sound, and the reverberation washed through the auditorium like light over water. She let it ring, counted the decay, then readied for the next cue, her pulse steady as a metronome. The music had survived sabotage and reclaiming. So had she. And when applause finally thundered, it carried no shrapnel, only relief, an honest percussion of human hands echoing against the walls where darkness had tried and failed to score its last note.